Okay, good morning, everybody. Happy Easter, happy Sunday. Glad that you guys can all still make it, even though we changed the time last minute to noon instead of 10 a.m. But what's cool is there's a lot of faces that normally don't make the 10 o'clock session and is here now, which is awesome. Maybe we'll just start changing up the times all the time so we can see more beautiful people. Welcome everybody on Easter. Happy Easter. On social. Happy Easter. Yeah, maybe we'll switch up the times a little bit. We'll see. I know 7 a.m. is a little bit early for a lot of people in the West Coast. They're like, what? ACIM at 7 a.m. You crazy? I need my sleep. So today's session, I think it's going to be really amazing because it's Easter. It's the spirit of Easter. We get to get a little bit clear about what we're actually celebrating Easter. I think I'm excited to bring that message along. Right? Easter is really about the resurrection. But the resurrection of what? Right? And that's the question that we're going to talk about. We're going to answer today. And then we're also going to go into chapter 3, section 5, called Beyond Perception. All right, so this chapter is super powerful. I actually posted a quote from this chapter earlier this week, and got a whole ton of feedback on what on that. So we talk about what is prayer and what forgiveness really is, and then how do you zoom out, and be at the level with the Holy Spirit, right? Getting to see how we play our game, how our perceptions of the world is, all the upside down perceptions that we have, where our judgments and our triggers and our anxieties all come from. So that way we can see what's real and what's not real, and how do we remember that place. So Easter is really about the resurrection. Okay. The Course says that resurrection of the body is really meaningless, right? So we think that Jesus resurrected and the body came back, but it's not the body. The Course says that the body is really meaningless because the body stays in space and time, and what's real and what's true is eternal. All right. So what is that? Then it's about the resurrection of what, right? And this is what the Course in today's section is going to really touch upon, is the resurrection is of Christ's consciousness in you. And what that means is the resurrection and the remembering of who you really are. And this section will talk more about, the question that we're asking. Like the only question that we're really always asking is, who am I really? Right? So the resurrection is the remembering of what that is, beyond the pains, beyond the material things, beyond our judgments, right? And the more that we actually pray and ask for the material things and the things of this 3D world, what we're really doing is just delaying our own homecoming. So the resurrection is the remembering of something that is much more beyond that. And there will be moments where we grasp it. We're like, wow, the world, everyone is my brother and my sister. And that's what the Course also mentions, is the way that we remember is we remember through the way that we see other people. That's why relationships are so important. That's why the Course says we return home in pairs. All right, so let me let some people in. So remembering, okay, and this section will just go into a little more of what is remembering. But Easter itself is, new beginnings, right? So today we get to celebrate a new beginning, a new world in which we can step into, new possibilities, new healing of relationships, new capacity to love and be compassionate and be forgiving. So those things are all available to us if we choose so today. The resurrection is to remember that it's really not that hard. We can go beyond We can go beyond our judgments. We can go beyond the bodies. We can go beyond our perception, our upside down perception of separation, of you and I. And so I'll start reading beyond perception, and then we'll kind of open it back up. Any part of this, if you have questions, comments, thoughts, you can just raise your hand. If you're on social, I might miss it, but you can join us on Zoom and ask your questions. So this is one of my favorite chapters, sections. And I feel like, again, I say it with every chapter, every section that we get to. But, leading up to this call each week, before Sunday, before Wednesday, I read the section again, usually about 4 or 5 times, and I let it speak to me in those days. I let the message just come. So sometimes when we're reading, McGenna, good morning. Sometimes when I'm just reading, it's hard to digest it. Like, the course is dense, it's thick. So when you're reading it, you might not be able to digest it right away. But if you just let it sit, see, there is a part of ourselves that already know. We know and we recognize. Right? Recognize meaning we've known before. So there's a part of us that knows, and we can feel and we can see truth when we're around it. And that part of you is the remembering, is the resurrection of that. Easter is a resurrection of that knowing, that certainty, right? No more questions, no more doubts, no more fear, no more judgments. Everything is just very clear, right? Good morning, brother. So as we read this section, try to access that knowing. Try to access that knowing part and listen from that space. And we're gonna ask the Holy Spirit to join us in the shares, in my speaking, in my delivery today, in our listening, and try to feel what is the frequency and the energy and the message that wants to come through in what we're sharing today. So as I read, you may be thinking about business, you may be thinking about your relationships, you may be thinking about someone or something or a situation, and just let it come, right? Let it be, let that thought come, and let the words that come through today impact those things. All right. So Magena, I'm in Mexico right now. We're on a cool short retreat down here, and then I'm headed to Peru on Monday. So the next session I will actually be in Peru doing this. Really excited for this little journey that I get to go on. And then I'll be back, and Don and I are working on a live event together in Vegas. So a lot of big things happening. Okay. And so we'll get started here in this section. Beyond perception. I have said that the abilities you possess are only shadows of your real strength, and that perception is inherently judgmental, was introduced only after the separation. No one has been sure of anything since. Okay, so the separation, just bring it back a little bit. Once upon a time, there was just it, right? There's just this, everything is just one in this space. And then the tiny mad idea came in. The course says this tiny mad idea was an idea that we weren't supposed to take so seriously, right? Which was, what if I could be something other than this? What if I wasn't just this? What if I was something else? And because that idea was taken seriously, this world of separation came about. And that idea needed to protect itself. And hence the ego came. The ego always creating and propelling separation. All right, so after the separation, no one has been sure of anything since. But with the problem comes the solution. And the solution is the Holy Spirit. The solution is prayer. Solution is miracles. Solution is forgiveness. But once we actually resurrected to this knowing, none of this stuff is even even necessary anymore. Forgiveness is not necessary. Prayer is not necessary when we're in that knowing. And so we're going to resurrect. Today is the resurrection of that knowing. That is Easter. Okay. I have also made it clear that the resurrection was the means for the return to knowledge, which was accomplished by the union of my will with my Father's. We can now establish a distinction that will clarify some of our subsequent statements. So knowledge, truth, knowing, these are all really interchangeable words. Okay, this is what rests in truth. Knowledge rests in eternity, rests in truth, rests in love, and everything else is perception, is interpretation, and it's really up to us. And it's what we see. So since the separation, the words create and make have become confused. When you make something, you do so out of a specific sense of lack or need. Anything made for a specific purpose has no true generalizability. When you make something to fill a perceived lack, you're tactically implying that you believe in separation. The ego has invented many ingenious thought systems for this purpose. None of them is creative. Inventiveness is wasted effort, even in the most ingenious form. The highly specific nature of invention is not worthy of the abstract creativity of God's creation. So right now we're making a distinction of make and create. Creation is of God, is of your extension. Like when God created you in the image of him or her, whatever you want to replace that with, but the ability to create. Okay, and create is the most powerful thing you can do, is your function. Okay, love continues to create itself. Make, however, make is the distinction. When we make something, we're making it, even in the most ingenious form, to fulfill some sort of perceived lack, which implies that I believe lack exists. So when we make something, and then we believe it, right? We make up a lot of stuff. We make up a lot of religions. We make up a lot of just ideas. That isn't really the truth. It is a way of seeing the world. It is a perception. That's what we got to recognize. What is a perception and what is truth? All right, so the course continues to share throughout the entire text different ways to look at it. So right now we're really diving into perception itself, getting a clear understanding of what that is. All right, so and then now we're going to make a distinction of knowing. Knowing, as we have already observed, does not lead to doing. The confusion between your real creation and what you have made of yourself is so profound that it has become literally impossible for you to know anything. Right? You didn't create yourself, but you did make an image of yourself. You do try to protect this image of yourself every day. And that's what the course says we need. It's an idea that we get to shed so that we may step into and recognizing our true identity and who we are. So remembering that. So knowing now is something, is first recognizing that you've made this idea of you, this image. Okay, so knowledge is always stable. It is quite evident that you are not. Nevertheless, you're perfectly stable as God created you. In this sense, when your behavior is unstable, you're disagreeing with God's idea of your creation. You can do this if you choose, but you would hardly want to if you were in your right mind. The fundamental question you continue to ask yourself cannot properly be directed to yourself at all. You keep asking, what is it that you are? This implies that the answer is not only one you know, but also one that is up to you to supply. Okay, so when you think that you ask this question, it's up to you to supply it, you cannot perceive yourself correctly. We made an image of ourselves as Alex. Who is Alex? Right? Where was I born? What did I do? What's my profession? We make this image, which is not ourselves. If we can't perceive ourselves correctly, how can we answer the question ourselves of what we are and who we are? And this is why we have to we have to ask. And then we're going to kind of talk about what is it that we're asking. What's the prayer? You have no image to be perceived. The word image is always perception related and not a part of knowledge. Image are symbolic and stands for something else. The idea of changing your image recognizes the power of perception, but also implies that there is nothing stable to know. Knowing is not open to interpretation. You may try to interpret meaning, but this is always open to error because it refers to the perception of meaning. Such incongruities are the result of attempts to regard yourself as separate and unseparate at the same time. This is impossible to make so fundamental a confusion without increasing your overall confusion still further. Your mind may have become very ingenious, but as always happens when method and content are separated. It is utilized in a futile attempt to escape from an inescapable impasse. Ingenuity is to totally divorce from knowledge, because knowledge does not require ingenuity. Ingenious thinking is not the truth that shall set you free, but you are free of the need to engage in it when you're willing to let it go. Right? So all the ingenious things that we make up about spirituality, about the meaning of things, they're still perceptions. And as people as people become more spiritualized, they actually rest in a more false image. Because there's an idea now, another idea that just seems more noble and more holy, but still defending it. Truth needs no defense. Right? And can we go beyond words? Can we go beyond images? Right? And so as people step into the different belief systems, we talk about it like it's the truth. Right? It doesn't matter if it's in the spiritual world, in the financial world, whatever it is, anything that happens and occurs in the 3D world is never consistent enough for us to find truth. Right? So this is now, what's beyond it? What's beyond the perception? And the Course has mentioned in here a couple times now, the knowing, this knowing that is not open to interpretation. Right? You can perceive what God is. You can go and tell people what God is and how to get there. But the knowing is not open for interpretation. There is no error in it. And so if we can recognize that we are just operating from one form of our own perception, then there's no conflicts with other people's perceptions. Right? Because we know that this is just one way of us interpreting the world. So again, that truth needs no defense. So that's one way for us to recognize when we are not in truth, is when we have to defend something that we're saying or that we believe. Can you be in such deep knowing that there is no holes that can puncture it? No doubt and uncertainty that can enter. And you sit in that level of knowing, right? So that's the possibility of Easter, of the resurrection of knowing. Okay, here's a very profound next section, which is about prayer. Prayer is a way of asking for something. It is the medium of miracles. But the only meaningful prayer is for forgiveness, because those who have been forgiven have everything. Once forgiveness has been accepted, prayer in the usual sense becomes utterly meaningless. The prayer for forgiveness is nothing more than a request that you may be able to recognize what you already have. In electing perception instead of knowledge, you place yourself in the position where you could resemble your Father only by perceiving miraculously. You have lost the knowledge that you yourself are a miracle of God. Creation is your source and your only real function. So this is very, very powerful, because we ask for things, right? Even in our prayers, we ask for things, and we ask for more money, relationships, love, and we ask for all of these things. But the Course says, as you ask for those things, really, it's not what you really want. You think those things will lead to what you want, but it doesn't. So they're actually delays. Delays are also part of the curriculum, as part of the lessons for you. But if prayer is a way for asking something, what is it that we really want to ask? Right? And what we really want to ask is for us to recognize and remember who we already are and what we already have. That there is nothing else that we possibly need to fulfill us, to complete us. There is no lack here. Right? Praying for anything to fulfill this perceived lack is meaningless, because you're implying that there is lacking in God's creation. The remembering is to remember that there is no lack, that God's creation is whole and perfect, and that is you. Right? And so it could be a kind of a strange ideal right now, or a little too above our heads, but it's okay, right? Let's sit with it and allow it to show up in our life, because life is going to teach us these words itself as a simple reminder. Then we get to live our life. Then we get to go to Easter, and we get to go, have dinner, and we get to interact with people. And so in those moments, can we rest in this truth? Can I see my family members as perfect and whole? Not the image that I had of them. Right? The resurrection is new moment to be able to perceive somebody in the right way, not in the way that I've made up in my mind. My sister is always this. My mom is always this. This is the conversation we're always going to have. We always this and we always that, right? I mean, those are the images you made up. They're not the truth. You have a chance for a resurrection every single moment, to resurrect your friends and family and people that you meet. Resurrection, you shift from seeing them as a body, as who they are, as who you've made them to be in your mind, the character that you've created in each person, to this divine God self, right? That's just perfect and whole. And no matter what they say and what they do and all their actions, you can see beyond it. We can see the light behind people. And that's Christ consciousness. That's what the Course calls Christ consciousness. You can call it the enlightened one, right? Namaste is like the divine in me recognizes the divine in you. That's really what this is. We're just namasteing. We get to, in order for us to see other people's divinity, we actually have to call upon our own. And so from this place, you can give freely without using any energy, without feeling like you're being drained. Right? It's actually the recognition that our cups are always full. Right? The Bible says you can't give from an empty cup, but the knowing and the remembering is that your cup was never empty in the first place, and that it can't actually be emptied. So that's the remembering. The statement, God created man in his own image and likeness, needs reinterpretation. Image can be understood as thought, and likeness as of like quality. God did create the spirit of his own thought and of a quality like his own. There is nothing else. Perception, on the other hand, is impossible without a belief in more or less. At every level, it involves selectivity. Perception is a continual process of accepting and rejecting, organizing, reorganizing, shifting, and changing. Right? And this is just what we do. It's insanity. We just shift and change, and we try to more or less agree, disagree with everything. Evaluation is an essential part of perception because judgments are necessary in order to select. So now this perception, right? Perception requires judgment. Judgment has us forget who it is that we are. Judgment is a wrong in this sense way of using your mind. Okay, and I'm not saying wrong as in like wrong like bad, like good or bad, but wrong as in it's just a delay. Like when we're driving and the GPS, like you go in the wrong direction, there's no judgments in it. It's just you just went in the wrong direction. Here's the course correct, right? So wrong in that sense, not as in like bad and wrong, right? What happens to perception is there is no judgment and nothing but perfect equality. Perception becomes impossible. Truth can only be known, all of its equality true, and knowing any part of it is to know all of it. This is why I share in A Course in Miracles. If you just know and recognize one sentence, one paragraph, you hear anything in it, you know a piece of it, like truly knowing, you feel it, you know everything, the whole part, because there is no separate parts of knowing. We're kind of going from different angles at the truth, but once you grasp it, once you see it, once you know it all. And this is what the Course actually says. Mastery happens in the moment's notice. Right? Mastery can happen in a moment, but we think that mastery requires 10,000 hours. 9,999 of those hours is us trying to undo ourselves. And then there's just one moment that we're like, I got it. I understand it. So truth can only be known, all of its quality true, and knowing any part of it is to know all of it. So even as we speak today, just by attending today, you are, when you feel it, right? When you grasp something in here, you're actually knowing everything that the Course is trying to teach you. However, we forget because we get busy and we go do and our 3D world stuff, and we forget this. And so the practice is, let's keep coming back to it. And the prayer is only for forgiveness, the forgiveness that I forgot. Let me return again. And the beautiful part of it is, look, nobody stays in the remembering all the time. So when you don't, it's not a judgment. Right? A lot of people kind of read the Course and we're like, oh my God, here I go again. I'm judging again. I'm failing. You're not failing. The Course is a simple correction. It's a course correction back to love, so that we may recognize miracles more and more and be miracle minded, be miracle ready. Only perception involves partial awareness. Knowledge transcends the laws governing perception because partial knowledge is impossible. It is all one and has no separate parts. You who are really one with it need but know yourself and know your knowledge is complete. To know God's miracle is to know Him. Forgiveness is the healing of the perception of separation. Correct perception of your brother is necessary because minds have chosen to see themselves as separate. Spirit knows God completely. That is its miraculous power. The fact that each one has this power completely in a condition entirely alien to the world's thinking. The world believes that if anyone has everything, then there is nothing left. But God's miracles are as total as His thoughts because they are His thoughts. And it's all an extension. There is always an abundance of it. Love creates more love like itself. Love undoes all things that are unlike itself and makes it more like itself. As long as perception lasts, prayer has a place. Since perception rests on lack, those who perceive have not totally accepted the atonement and given themselves over to truth. So the atonement is the undoing. To atone is to undo. The undoing of separation is the atonement. It's the knowing. It's another word that the Course is using for knowing. So where there's no more questions, right? And when there's no more questions, there's no more perception of lack, there's no need for prayer. There's no need for forgiveness. There's no need for miracles, because those are just tools to help you return, help you remember. Perception is based on separated state, so that anyone who perceives at all needs healing. Communion, not prayer, is the natural state of those who know. God and his miracle are inseparable. How beautiful indeed are the thoughts of God who live in his light. Your worth is beyond perception, because it is beyond doubt. Do not perceive yourself in different lights. Know yourself in the one light where miracle that is you is perfectly clear. So that is the section that we will cover today, beyond perception. And then next, on Wednesday, we will go into judgment and the authority problem, which is the problem that we have with everything in the world. And we'll talk more about that. But, today I wanted to kind of go through that, right? Because it is Easter and we get a chance to, I don't know where everybody's going to be going, but, if you're meeting with people, what is the purpose, right? How do we remember and how do we help others remember? So that's going to be kind of what the topic that we want to continue to cover for the rest of this call is, relationships, any hardships in your life, any challenges, any anxieties, any uncertainties, right? Because it's really about the remembering that our cups could never not be full. Our prayers are only for forgiveness. The forgiveness is to remember what we already have, to remember that there is no lack. Just got back from church. Oh, yay. Great, Jay. So any questions, any thoughts about our topic here today? So I think we're going to have to change the time because there are so many awesome people on here that I normally don't see. Welcome, Billy. It's good to see your name. So, questions, thoughts? Any thoughts that is going through your mind is meant to be here?
Yeah, I'll jump in, man. I would say, tons of, remembering is the best way to describe it. Because we get stuck in these loops of like achievement, right? And just relax into it and know it's all happening as it's supposed to. And, I really liked how you said like the forgiveness and the only prayer is forgiveness, because we pray for all these things. And in reality, the return to home is all we need. So I just want to acknowledge that, man. And I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, it's really powerful reminder in the Course, because, we pray for so many things that are just delaying us. Because let's say we pray for more money to pay for this bill, or more money to be financially free, whatever it is, we're praying for outside things to fulfill a perceived lack that we have. And so that's going to be a delay, because as you get those things, you think those things will give you the completion that you're looking for, and it doesn't. And that's why it's a waste of time. This weekend I was with I met somebody, and he was like, dude, I sold a company for $5 million and he had 3 million something in the bank. And he's like, dude, I was the most depressed person. Everybody thought I was a dick, right? Like, more money does not give you that happiness, right, that you thought you're seeking. Now, of course, if we change our relationship to it, obviously money can bring more opportunities, more things that we can do, more things to experience, but understanding that all those experiences do not actually fill a lack. because there is no lack. We can experience and dance and have fun and do all the things. Joy is actually a way to God. You know, when we laugh, when we don't take things that seriously, this is how the separation came about, was that we took an idea that we could somehow be somewhere else and be something else too seriously. And anytime that we get triggered, we also take something too seriously. Someone goes, Alex, your black hoodie looks like shit. And maybe I don't take offense to it, but if I do, now I'm going to lose peace. Right? And I gave power away to someone else, to something else. Like this black hoodie actually completes an image of who I really am when it doesn't. Right? So so what we're praying for is for forgiveness. The forgiveness is to recognize, like, forgive myself for not recognizing who I am and what I already have. And when I forget who I am, I forget who God is. Right? Like last night, somebody was asking me, how do you kind of sit alone and do and feel like you're still grounding? You don't need a lot of things, a lot of people around you and this and that. I'm like, I don't feel alone. Right? All of our problems come from a disconnect from our source. We feel alone, we feel abandoned, we lose trust, we lose faith. All problems come from a deviation away from God and love. And the solution to that is a return to it. Okay, if you think about all the problems that we have, it's because we're just not trusting that God's plan is perfect. When we attack people and judge people, we're saying, God, you made a mistake. And this is the next section next week, is us kicking God off the throne and sitting on the throne, be like, God, I got this. This person is bad. This person needs this. This situation is this, right? We start playing the judge. And the problem with that is we play judge from a place of perception. Perception is like a little speck inside a speck. How do you speak truth when you're speaking from perception? All right, this is why, like, everything is about learning for us. Everything is about giving us an opportunity to return. And the only thing that we pray for is for those moments, those things, to help us remember. And that's why the Course says, you know, the only meaningful prayer is for forgiveness, because those who have been forgiven have everything. Once forgiveness has been accepted, prayer in the usual sense becomes utterly meaningless as well. Right? Like, we don't even need prayer. We don't need forgiveness. We don't need miracles anymore, because we know. Yeah. So, yeah, thanks, Don. Let's see. Grace Star says, I wonder if we chase peace and happiness by way of material things, although the peace and happiness may be inside us. Yes. Everything that we are looking for is internal, is an internal connection to the divine. That's what we're looking for. We're looking to recognize that we are not alone, that we are perfect. All the perceived lacks in our life creates the anxiety, creates the depression, creates the wanting more, the never enough. Right? And then from that place, the insecurity projects outwards into the world in the form of judgments, in the form of, I agree with this person, I don't agree with this person, I don't like, right and wrong. And everything becomes that. And that's the distraction. All right, so, sorry, Jay. Any other thoughts around it? Thank you.
So the topic today was miracles, right? I mean,
it's always a topic, yes. But the topic
okay.
today is really resurrection, which, yes, it is a miracle too.
All right, so on that, I just want to make it relevant. the pastor today, he's got a sense of humor. He was really funny. He was saying when Jesus brought Lazarus back from the dead, how they had this big dinner at his house, and Martha was the host, and Lazarus was taking selfies with people because everybody showed up just to see as much to see Lazarus as Jesus. And what I didn't know was that Jesus, it was literally less than 1 week from when Jesus would have been crucified. And that, it's impossible for us to wrap our heads around that fact that Jesus was both God and man at the same time, and that there was this duality going on.
Mm-hmm.
But what I really wanted to say was, and I say this on the outside, but do something that you just said was a quote from Jim Carrey. He's like, I wish everyone could be wealthy and have everything they ever wanted so that they would then know that it's really not the answer. And I learned from having a couple of near-death experiences more than once that every breath we take is a miracle. And I woke up twice in the hospital not thinking I was going to wake up, and the whole world looked different. And I realized then, with a bunch of other things, that miracles are what don't happen, that could have gone wrong, that didn't, that we take for granted. Like, we never know when, we should never be annoyed by being delayed or caught in traffic, or like, we never know when God is protecting us from something. If something gets canceled, and I also found a quote that I posted recently on Facebook to this, and it got a lot of responses like, you never know when you were prevented from doing something, what God was saving you from.
Yeah. And here's the thing. This whole 3D world is just a game and a dream, right? So save, not save, we're always trying to protect the body. There is, the course is, Easter is about the resurrection, but a lot of people focus on the crucifixion. Salvation is not through the crucifixion, but it's through the resurrection. The crucifixion is our how fast we go into judging and condemning others, right? Ideas, people. And so the resurrection is a symbol of how good still prevails over evil. That light always prevails over darkness. That as light is introduced, darkness automatically fades away because darkness has nothing to stand on. Darkness is just a lack of light, a perceived lack of light. And so, we focus a lot on that. Let's punish ourselves. Let's punish others. Let's punish the errors, but the sins that people are committing. And that's what's focused a lot on the story of the crucifixion and the resurrection. But today is a focus on the resurrection, which is the remembering that love is greater. That love is the only thing that is real. Love is stable. Not the love that we created, right? The Course actually makes a distinction early on, about what love is. So the Course says sin is defined as lack of love. Since love is all there is, though, sin in the light of the Holy Spirit is simply a mistake to be corrected rather than an evil to be punished. Right. So kind of going back down to the GPS example. When we're driving down the road, the GPS says to make a right, but you made a left, right? You made a wrong turn, but it's a simple course correction. The GPS just goes, okay, no judgment at all. Here you go straight, make a right. But what we do as human beings is we go into punishment of making that wrong turn. And so sin really is just a mistake that gets to be corrected, not something to be punished. Right? It's an error to be corrected, not a mistake to be punished. So as we kind of think about that, when we see the things happening in the world, right? No matter how extreme. I mean, I always think about one of the things that gets to me is like human trafficking, right? The people that participate in that. Like sometimes I have a hard time, right? I have a hard time of saying, oh, it's just a course correction. It's like sometimes it goes into, no, they can just disappear off the planet, right? But does that solve a problem? What is the problem? And it's really always a mirror and reflecting back to ourselves. Where are our warring thoughts? Where do we create war in our lives that shows up as this? you know? So yeah, thank you for that share. And so, you know, as we commune with our families, friends today, you know, recognizing that our cup actually can never, ever be empty. Right? Like it's not about serving from an empty cup, but it's about remembering that this cup that has been created as you has no lack, nothing could take away or add to it because you've been created perfect. And so the only prayer is that when we're asking for something is asking to remember that, to bring our minds back to that remembering where I can recognize I got no lack. And then from that space, as we give to our families and friends, we give from a perfect place, a perfect love place. You know, oftentimes what we do is we give with a string attached to it. And if we don't get the recognition or the acknowledgement, even if it's like kind of down the road, we like pull that string back. And we go into, oh, I'm always making the sacrifices. I'm always doing this. And this is what the ego does in separation. What the ego does is it always makes what we do greater than what other people do. Our sacrifices become bigger. Right? We think about like when we first come together with like a significant other or meet somebody new, right? You want to give because you want to show up as the best version and you want to see them as the best version. And then as you get to know them longer and longer and longer, it's like, dude, this guy's just draining my energy, or this girl's just draining my energy all the time. and we pull that back. And we start to think that, you know, it becomes a tit for tat type of thing. All right.
I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm trying, to make it relevant, or it is relevant, but something I didn't think of before, also to something that you said earlier, was that Jesus willfully died, and the pastor said something I hadn't thought of before. He was killed by what he created. And it happens sometimes when a child will kill a parent, for example, that he was literally killed by, and he did it, and he died willingly to make that sacrifice so that things would not happen going forward. And also what you were saying about the cross and the crucifixion and the resurrection, and how Christians, and I was raised Christian, but I don't claim to be one anymore because we're all on the same path. We're all one, just like you say. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't have crosses around anymore. And there's more and more art coming out of Jesus laughing, because when we are joyful as much as possible, when we let things roll off our back, just like you don't let something gets you when someone criticizes you, when that makes us more in a vibrationally way able to receive good things coming to us, whatever prosperity. We can't be dissatisfied with making $100 or $1,000, because that's God just throwing us little droplets of what's to come, and to be just as grateful that for that 100, 1,000, whatever is, a small amount of money to you, because that means you are, raising your vibration to receive. And the more joyful you are, just like you say, the more you can receive, the more you don't let things get to you. When you know what your vision is and your passion is, and you're headed in the direction that God, put you on the planet for, that only you can do.
So, it's yes, and it's always our attempt to create something, or to make something, actually, the distinction, right? It's still an idea, like this idea of cross, no cross, laughter, this and that. There's still a duality happening, right? And it creates more confusion. This is what the Course says. It's impossible for you to be in perception and become less confused, because all we do is take a different stance, take a different position, Christian, not Christian, what somebody's saying, what somebody's not saying. Beyond perception is the knowing that is beyond it, that can't even be shaken. Right? It cannot even be shaken. Last week I posted a quote that it was in our chat. Somebody posted, but it says, we're always trying to create abundance. But the thing is, abundance is already always around. We're trying to create more love, more money, but all of that is all around us all the time. All we really do is create limitations. And that's what we're doing by running in circles, agreeing with this, don't agree with this, I want this, I don't want this. And we're focused on the wrong things. This is what the Course is saying. A prayer is not to ask, for those things. The prayer is to ask for me remembering and me knowing what it is I already have and who I already am. To remember that this cup has always been full, that nothing can touch me. There is no lack, right? There is no vulnerability in the knowing. There's no shakeability. Yeah, and it's,
Alex.
yes.
Sorry. Hi.
Hey,
I think,
Ariana, welcome.
Hey, how are you? So I wanted to say something, two things actually. One thing is that for anyone that actually is into really understanding the ego and try to, I don't know, become more aware so that you can overcome those reactions that come from the ego. There is this book that I'm reading that I find fascinating. It's Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth.
Yeah,
I swear it's like a ACIM for dummy.
Well, yeah, Eckhart
yeah.
Tolle is a Course in Miracles student.
Yeah, absolutely. You can tell, but the way he put things, it's even more clear to understand. So I highly recommend to anyone that, they have a audiobook is great.
Yeah.
And then another thing I wanted to mention that I have this theory, me and my theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have come to believe that because of the suffering that we are inflicting to the animal kingdom, this is how it resonates among us human, and all this hatred and all this war and all these things. I think that part of it could be because we are so fearless and atrocious sometimes in the way we are raised the animal to feed ourselves, which we don't even need if we want to look at it.
Yeah.
So I think that, yes, we will come together, but I also believe that everything in this planet is some form of us, because I can see myself in a car. I can see myself in a situation.
Mm-hmm.
So animals also are part of that whole that needs to come home and that needs to restore their dignity and that we need to stop, I think, or, there is no judgment, but I think that it will facilitate our, it's not working, all right? It's not working for us to come back home and to find peace for as long as we treat the animal the way we're doing it. That's my theory.
Yeah. So I love that you mentioned that, because I don't eat meat, and I used to have a thing like, oh, if you don't eat meat, you're more compassionate, more this. But that is just another perception that creates more confusion, right? Because really, bodies are nothing. Okay, bodies are nothing. We're really just space and atoms. Most of our body is really just space if we go down to the micro, that level. It's just atoms moving around. And animals are also just atoms moving around. But we have this world that we've created, and then we make things right and wrong. And my conflict was people that ate meat were, they lack a certain level of love and compassion, and people that don't. But then I was like, dude, all that did was create more war inside me, and projecting that outwards just creates more conflict and war, right? So am I actually serving anything, or am I just actually entrenching myself more into my righteousness, which is just a different form of other types of conflict that shows up in the world? But what about insects, right? What about insects? What about the tiny particles that we came and see? Like, how far do we go? And here's the knowing. The knowing is beyond your ideas of what is right and wrong. There is a heaven. There is a world where energetically it's all combined, right? So if our energy fields and we're all one, then if I ate an animal, and what am I really eating? I'm just returning back to one. I don't know. There's just a way to be able to look at it where it doesn't create a conflict inside you, right? Because I did have that conflict at one point. Me and my wife, when we first started dating, it was tough for us. But she has been a great teacher for me. Now she eats only meat. And I just laugh at it now, right? Because at first I was like, oh my God, I didn't think about the animals and this and that. But, that was a place for me to look to see where peace was not for me. And then so you start with the gratitude process, like, okay, wifeski, babeski, thank you for being an amazing teacher for me in this moment, bringing up something for me that I need to look at. And then I ask God to show me a different way to look at it. Please show me a different way to perceive this, okay? Because I don't want the conflict. But the more I step into the righteousness of it, it creates this thing with other people, right? And then just creates division. It's the ego, is what we mentioned today, is the ego's ingenious way of creating separation, is to be right about something that we think is noble and holy. Whether it be being a vegetarian, whether it be being, spiritual, Christian, non-Christian, Buddhist, whatever it is. If we use it as a way to create separation, it only brings more conflict into our hearts. And all conflicts, no matter how small you think they are equally disturbing to the mind. Equally.
Yeah.
The smallest things that we think is not a big deal, it will take one little push for you to commit murder, is what the Course is saying. We are capable, well, the Course doesn't say that, but there's another book that says we are all capable of murder. Putting in the right position, right place, right circumstance, we are capable. Because there is that warring thought inside of us. So we have to find those spots and shine and illuminate it. Right? And so every time, so you develop a different relationship to triggers. You develop a different relationship to darkness, to people and things that agitate you. It becomes a gratitude for it. Like, oh, wow, thank you. Thank you for showing me what I had hidden and what I had suppressed and put away. But what we do is we give our power to the other things. This person said this and it made me feel this way, and that's why I responded this way. Like we didn't have a choice along the way. That's what the Course is saying, that we've diminished our own powers. But viewed and perceived correctly, we use those triggers to re-empower ourselves, to take the power back. And there's no better teacher than your significant other. There's no better teacher than your family members, right? Because they're what the Course calls a level 3 teacher. They will provide an unlimited amount of opportunities for you to learn. Level 1 is people that you just bump into. Someone cuts you off while you're driving. Oh, thank you, stranger. Right? For having my anger and this come up. So, yes, thank you, Ariana, for that share. Because I was definitely there. And I think Shiva and I actually had many conversations around this. Which is
You know
great.
what, though? I don't have any problem with people that eat meat. I do realize that, this is what they're taught. We are raised thinking that animals are food. So, it's normal. And I don't have any, people could eat. If they want to eat meat, they can eat meat. It's the way they raise the animal that I think is creating, these things that this war among us. It's like it's showing up. It's a mirroring, But it's not the pigs and the cow. It's like the children in Gaza.
Yeah,
that's what I think. I think that it will be a huge progress if we would change. Because if you think about it.
So here, wait, hold on. Let me just share one thing real quick.
Yeah.
I think this will help. So
Yeah.
Changing the way that's done is trying to fix a symptom, right, of an original problem. So for example, my friend Paul Hutchinson, he is a executive producer of Sound of Freedom. He went down and he quit his position as one of the co-founders of a hedge fund, a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund, and he went to South America, started rescuing children for 10 years. Okay, he's like, there's a problem. I get to go rescue these kids. He risked his life multiple times. He has amazing things that he's written and talked about of that journey. But when I interviewed him on my podcast and we had talked, I was like, so you went down to fix a problem, right? There was like 8 million people being trafficked at that time. And after 10 years of your efforts and your operators and all the stuff that you've done, You've rescued, yes, and you made a difference in hundreds of children's lives, but now the market, okay, the industry is 20 million, right? So as we resist something, it persists, right? As we try to fix something, this is what the Course says. You trying to overcome fear makes fear bigger. You doing all the, and I think about this a lot. It's like, do we do shadow work or do we do light work? Right? No judgments on it, but whichever one, the law of expansion is wherever energy is being put into, it grows. Wherever you reinforce a thought, it continues to get bigger. So as you do the dark work and the shadow work and go through that, and you try to conquer fear, there is no mastery of fear. There's only mastery of love. When you try to conquer fear and darkness, it just grows bigger and bigger. But the Course says that's fine if you choose to do that. You're choosing a path that is, no judgment, but it's harder on yourself, right? There will be one moment that matters, the holy instant. That instant is the moment that you're like, that's it. I've had enough, right? It's too big, right? I've made it too real. Now it's time to just completely let it all go. That's how the Course was created. There was such a buildup of people in Columbia University stepping on top of each other and talking behind each other's backs that William Theffert and Helen Schuckman was like, there must be a better way. See, that moment is it right there. When we stop trying to fix something and we say, God, just show us. Obviously, we're just running around in circles over here, right? The mastery of love, the mastery of God, the mastery of light. Anytime that is being focused on, all the darkness automatically fades away. The other story that I love is how our perceptions can shift it so drastically, right? The way we view somebody, we can think they're an asshole all this time. Then they do one amazing deed and we're like, wow, this is a saint. And then we go back and forth, vacillate over and over. That's what the Course is saying. We're just wasting time. Right? Marianne Williamson, her parents fought all the time. And she had an image of them. And she blamed her inability to have a great relationship on the fact that her parents showed up a certain way. And then when her father passed, she found all these letters of him courting his mom. I mean, her mom. Him courting his mom. Him courting her mom. And it changed the way that she viewed her dad. And all the stories faded. This is the mastery of love. We could have chosen this. She could have chosen it from the start. But she chose to be in the stories and the dramas until something showed up to say, okay, now my whole thing changed. And when she changed that, all the trauma, all the stories that she linked to it all started to fade away. Right? Because oftentimes we connect things that really has nothing to do with each other. Something happens to us in the past. It really has nothing to do with this moment. But we connect it. Right? So the forgiveness is to separate them, to break it apart so that we can remember that who we are, what we have already. And that's what the Course says is the only thing that we should be praying for is for the forgiveness. Those who have been forgiven have everything. And forgiveness is simply for us to recognize what we already have. Anything else that we pray for is a delay. So, yes, I agree with you, Ariana. And obviously, this is just another perspective also for myself, right? Also, it's not the truth. What I'm speaking into is a perspective, right? There might be a truth around it, but it is still a perspective. A Course in Miracles is a perspective that allows you to experience moments. Love is not something that could be taught through the text. Love is something that is beyond what can be taught. All we're doing in the Course is to find all the barriers that we have created against love so that we may have those moments where we experience it.
Yeah, I love that perspective.
Yeah.
It's a very good perspective.
Thank you.
Also, I want to say something though that I admire, but I'm not vegan, far from it. But I admire the way the vegan are doing it to the planet, because they are not, they are educating, they are transforming the original idea that animal is food by creating documentary that actually inform the people of what is going on, and then let people make their own math and make their own choices. So it is a peaceful approach, I find, that they have. They got me. Oh, sure, they got me. Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Anyway, it's always good to be here with you, Alex.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Always good to see you. You know, and we want to think about our teachers too, right? So like, okay, there is a peaceful teacher that's showing the way, but sometimes we're so stubborn that we actually can't learn unless we see something else, unless we go and experience something else ourselves, right? So maybe we need the most inhumane way of slaughtering animals for us to learn, right? Or, you know, the most peaceful way. We don't really know. Right, everything plays a part in God's plan. This is the knowing that we don't even need to question that anymore. Right, everybody has a garden that they tend to. Everybody has a curriculum and a part that they play in the whole coming back together, including all the human traffickers. Everyone plays a part, and this is where we get to dig to see the capacity in which we can be compassionate and loving and understanding. You know? Yes. Amen, brother. Good to see you. So, other thoughts, questions? We got about 15 more minutes. And dude, yes, Billy, love it. Love the beard. Love seeing you.
What's going on, brothers? Good to see you. Hey, everybody. So here's what I don't want to take anything off topic, but what came up for me when you early on mentioned the knowing and related it to the resurrection was I feel like I have this particular struggle where I feel like I'm, for the most part, in the knowing. And then let me give you a good example, right? So recently, I've been working months on purchasing a company for about $1.5 million, and we were supposed to close on April 1st. And the entire time, I'm like reminding myself, this, owning this company is my identity. It's not going to make or break me. Reminding myself not to get emotionally attached. All those sorts of things. And then here comes Friday, deal falls apart completely when we're supposed to close on Monday, right? And just the day before, or even maybe that morning too, reminding myself of the same stuff. And then it happened, and my mind goes to sleep. Excuse my language. But, just like, I'm like, yesterday I was just a total mess. Like, been working months on this damn deal, and now all this other stuff starts coming up. Start getting reminded of my breakup from last year, reminded of, it's just all this stuff. It's like, I think I'm in the knowing, and then when I'm tested, my mind just turns to blah, right? And it takes me time to get back and remind myself, kind of like you were mentioning. And then when you mentioned the metaphor of the cup, it's literally like one day I see the cup and it's full, and the very next day, just one word or one thing that changes, and all of a sudden I'm looking at the same exact cup, which has the same amount of whatever is in it, and it looks empty to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, so then at that point I'm like, okay, so I didn't know. I thought I knew when I didn't. And it's almost like I feel like I'm going in this weird cycle of thinking that I'm aware or that I know, and then I get tested and it's almost like I'm going back to square one.
Well, I don't know if you're going to be in square one, or I don't even know what square one is, right. But here is actually the beauty of your share right here is it's actually speaking right into the resurrection and what Easter is about also, right? Like, you remember and you want to remember and you think that this is going to be the best thing, and then all of a sudden that falls apart and then you lose it, you forget. But the remembering can come back. This is what we ask for. The prayer is for us to remember again, is to resurrect that remembering, right? You going through what you did, now you can, the salvation is in the resurrection, is the remembering again that you don't really need it, right? That you're still full and complete without this company, even though you've worked months and months trying to buy it. And if it falls apart, okay, it's showing me that with or without it, my cup can be full. But I went into the forgetting. And what is the purpose of forgetting? The purpose of forgetting is to strengthen your remembering. Right? So the resurrection, each moment, each time that comes back, it strengthens that remembering. So you're not really back in square one, right? And then also it shortens the time frame in which you sit in the forgetting. So, now you can start to, in that perspective, you can start to bring gratitude to the deal that failed, to the people that made the deal fail, to the things that didn't work out in there, because the only appropriate response, what the Course says, the only appropriate response to anything is love. Right? Like we responded with, this person did this, and that's why it didn't work out. And, why would they go back on their word, or whatever reason why the acquisition didn't happen? Because we go right into, when that happens, the forgetting is when we release all of our powers. We give it to everything else and everyone else. The remembering is, let me pull it all back, right? I recognize what this thing is for. It's to help me remember. This whole situation event is to help me remember. And we have no freaking clue if that company is what you really even want at the end of the day, right? There are no accidents in God's plan. So the only reason why we ever lose our peace is we fail to trust in the great plan. All right, so now you can have a different perspective about not having this company acquired. And I promise, I don't promise, but I'm sure, right? I know that one day you will look back and be like, wow, what a gift that I didn't acquire that company. That's going to happen. I look back at so many things in my life where I thought I wanted to be with this person, or I wanted to have this money. I wanted not to lose everything in my, when I was running my restaurant. But now looking back, like, oh my God, thank you for all of those things happening. All right. So it's almost like, let's break this time interval and look at it from a future back at ourselves now. If we could be just so grateful in the present moment, everything else in the past heals. Right? So like, call forth that like new perception about this whole thing with the company. And ask for the miracle. Don't try to figure it out yourself, because you created the conflict. You cannot provide the solution to that conflict. What you create, you believe to be real, and you will defend it. So you must ask for intervention from the Holy Spirit, or whatever you want to call it, just for divine wisdom to come through to give you that. All right, awesome. So couple more minutes. It's so good to see you, Billy, and glad to see that you've rolled through again. Maybe we have to do our calls a little bit later in the day. Get to see more beautiful faces. I'm just gonna start switching times around. Okay, thoughts, questions? Yes, Marlu, did you want to say something, or are you saying bye? Okay. See you later. I owe you a call. I will give you a call later. Okay. Rakshanda, go ahead.
Hi, Alex. This is my first time attending today, so appreciate
welcome.
Yeah, appreciate the perspective. A lot to unpack here. But when you were talking about I don't know if you saw it in the chat, but I was saying when you were talking about the wars and conflict and peace, is it a perspective to say that the wars or conflicts inside us manifest as the wars in the world today? So that conversely, if there's a peace, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me, like Josh Groban's song.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's peace inside every human or most humans, is the peace in the world has a greater chance to occur?
Yeah. So here is the conflict that we have. It's everybody needs to participate. Everyone needs to be at peace in order for us to have peace. But really, the Course says there is no separation, so there is nobody else out there, right? Everything is reflecting back to my internal self. So the Course says when God is on your mind, God is all you see. Even in the presence of war, you can still see love and God. You can still see perfection. So it's what we make real in our mind. The Course says that the world does not need to change. Our perception about the world needs to change. Okay? People in our lives do not need to change. Our perception about them needs to change. War does not need to change. Our perception around war needs to change. And as we shift, we help the collective shift. Right? Separation is even if I'm at peace, other people need to be at peace. Oneness is if I can bring my mind to peace, then it is automatically already triggering that effect in the whole. Right? So if we bring, see, that's a knowing. The knowing is, do I know that it's one? Or do I think it's one and then other times it's not? Right? We speak about, especially in a lot of spiritual community, we speak about oneness, then we speak about separation at the same time. Right? They, that, and then me, this. So how can we not have conflict when we speak about unity and separation at the same time? It cannot occupy our mind at the same time. That conflict itself creates the warring thoughts. Right? So it's either one or the other. The ego's like, no, it could be both. Sometimes we'll do this, other times we'll do this. But that's the ego's ingenious way to keep separation real. Because you are exempt. And if you are exempt, you are always making the sacrifice. And so the Course, last week, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about beyond sacrifice. That there is no such thing. You can't sacrifice anything. Right? Like when you're sacrificing nothing for everything, you're really not sacrificing anything. Right? Like the money, the material things, what you think you're sacrificing, the bodies, those are all illusions. They're not in truth. They have an expiration. Right? So that means it's all a tool for learning. And we talked about the confusion of levels. There's only two levels. One is the level of the mind and the other is level of the body. The body is a tool for the mind. But what we do is we make the body more real than the mind. And that's the upside down perception of our world today. Okay, as you make bodies and physical 3D material things more real than the mind and the spiritualness, the oneness that's possible, that's the upside down shift. The cause of the problem is in the mind and the body follows. But we upside down think it, that the cause is from the physical, and then our experience changes because of that. See, cause and effect is flipped upside down too. So as we shift into miracles, as we pray for forgiveness and remembering of what we have and who we really are, that upside down cause and effect starts to switch back. Right? We recognize that it's spiritually how in tune we are. The 3D world manifests right around us in accordance to it. We know this sometimes. Sometimes we know it's like, I'm going to go purchase a black Corvette. Or no, a pink Corvette. Nobody's got a pink Corvette. And the moment you go and think that, it's what you see now. Right? Because all of this stuff already exists around you. The fact that you can even think it means it already exists. And so the physical follows the mind. The body follows the mind, not the other way around. All right, so we write where the power belongs. The power doesn't belong in the body, the power belongs in the mind. And where is the mind? If I die and you cut open my head, do I find the mind in there? All right, so as we start to kind of, this is about stepping into that spiritual faith, oneness, God, like all of our problems come from a deviation from God and love. A return to it is this writing of where my mind belongs. Okay, so that's the resurrection. The resurrection is this remembering right here. And we can probably hold on to this for moments. As soon as this call is over, we might just forget right away, but it's okay. We'll just see you guys on Wednesday. And then we'll do this all over again. That's what I do every day, every morning, every time I forget. It's not a bad and wrong to forget. Right? No judgments. It's just simple course correct. Like think of your life as a GPS. You make a left turn when you're supposed to make a right. No judgments. Go straight, make a right, make another right, make a left, you're back. Versus, stopping the car and then, beating myself up and then go and beat other people up and forgot that I even got to continue driving. Forgot where I'm even going. Forgot I'm going home because we get so distracted to that. Right. Yes. Offer your brothers the gift of lilies, not the crown of thorns. Exactly. Give the gift of love, not fear. Fraser, go ahead. Last question, then we're gonna wrap it up.
So when someone in your life starts to project things onto you and you feel like apologetic for it, even though you might feel like it's not you, I try to take ownership of things and I'll try and see it from their way, but at the same time, let's say that person doesn't see their own part in that.
Mm-hmm.
It causes you to overthink it almost in a way. So like an instant came up where someone had told me that I was telling them what to do and how they felt and all that. And I said, well, I'm sorry I feel that way and all that. That wasn't my intention. You like to try to be, peaceful, calm, and to understand where that person's coming from, but yet there was no responsibility on their part for the actions that they took. How do you?
It's a very ingenious way for the ego to slip it all back to the other person, right? That blame goes right back out. In a way, you're giving the power over. To even perceive somebody as projecting, you had to have projected first. Right? To not be able to see Christ consciousness and light, even though they're speaking words, right, and doing things, if you couldn't see the light in them, you take those words and you take those actions seriously. You've taken it personal. That means you've already projected on that person to start that they could somehow harm you. And you're protecting a version of you that is, I want to be peaceful, right? For example, someone says, Alex, you got a red hoodie on. I'm like, yeah, great. It's black to me. It's red to you. No problems. But if someone goes, your A Course in Miracles calls are shit and you are a terrible teacher, now it kind of pulls on a different string, right? So in that way, you get to look at it as, where did I create vulnerability where there's not? What am I trying to protect about an image that I made that was not created in the image of God, but that I made and I'm trying to protect? You want to protect it, which will create the resistance, which will create the triggers. Okay, truth needs no defense. Your perception of yourself will always need defense. And then so now you start, the solution is you start by thanking in your mind. You don't even have to do it. You don't have to do it with them. Thanking this person for bringing this up for you, that you get to see, how the ego does. right? And how like sneakingly it slips back to blaming the other person for what they did. But really, it's all you're asking for is, man, I forgot again that my cup is full and nothing can touch it, nothing can add to it, nothing can take away from it. I forgot that. Thank you, brother. Thank you, sister, for showing me that I forgot. And now this whole entire situation kind of shifts, right? Instead of like letting this person take your power away, you've given this person the power to add to help you remember. And in that space, both of you rise and grow together. Right? So again, that's the resurrection. The resurrection is the remembering, is to use all the things in our life, all the relationships and all the situations to help us remember once again that we are perfect and whole. That God couldn't have made a mistake in the creation of us. Right? And then from that space, our channel is cleared. And everything we do with confidence and certainty and trust, knowing that we can't actually make a mistake, right? We can only delay and detour. Nothing we do is in this world is permanent punishment, right? Like it's simple, redirect, delay, redirect. And that's just what we do. At some point, we will find our way home if we follow the GPS. If we remember to even look at the GPS. Let's call it the resurrection, the remembering to look at the GPS so we know which way we're going. and then the ego is like, nope, I'm stubborn. I will not look at the GPS. I will drive and I will go my own way. And then along the way, we don't even remember where we're going. Like, where were we going? Where was I supposed to go? So busy, exchanging attacks and conflicts back and forth. So, yeah. Anyways, I'm going to wrap it up here. Happy Easter, everybody. Thank you for all tuning in and being flexible with the time. I'm very, very grateful. Thank you all for being here to help me remember as well. And we'll run it again on Wednesday. Wednesday, I will be in Peru, so I'll be in a whole different joint. And see you guys in Peru. Peace out, everybody. Till next time. Much love. So why does